Hi, everybody. Welcome. And hi, Christian. Hi, Khaled. Good to see you. Today, we're going to look at the two sides of AI. Number one, the vast business opportunities and potential benefits of this technology. And number two, the dangers, the misinformation through deepfakes, the voter manipulation, and the capacity for destabilization and division. This is a very big topic. So to guide us through, we have Christian, co-founder and CEO of Audiomob, and Khaled, a writer and communications expert who sits on the Meta Oversight Board. Christian, just quickly to introduce yourself and Audiomob, you were featured on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list.
Yep.
And Audiomob is one of the top 15 UK startups for 2025. Can you just explain a little bit what Audiomob is and how does it use AI?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So Audiomob, myself and my CTO and co-founder of the audience, Wilfred, we created this mechanism called in-game and in-app audio advertising. So the idea here is, let's say you've got a video ad that would block you, let's say on YouTube or a game. They tend to be quite annoying. They block your experience for 40 to 45 seconds. Let's say you're racing a car in a mobile game. Rather than a video ad blocking you, an audio ad would play out of the car's radio and you can continue the experience. It's a much better, less intrusive experience. Now, the reason I'm on this stage is that over the last 2 years, we've pivoted to become a deep tech company. We've invested millions of dollars into artificial intelligence. And what we can do is we can analyze audio signals and predict various aspects of our users using contextual, non-personalized data. So we can predict age, gender, political affiliation, all these different things. And we generate these audiences using our own AI. We've got 45 patents around the world. And we work with many governments, over 12,000 individual brands. And yeah, that's the reason I'm here, and that's what we do.
Okay, good stuff. Just a quick question. What's to stop another company copying your idea, doing exactly the same thing?
Oh, a bit of a technical rabbit hole here, but what I'll say is the reason we have, I'll keep it short. The reason that we have over around 43 to 45 patents now, we keep getting more, is that it's very, very difficult to analyze what's going on the phone's device. We're the only company in the world that can analyze whether the volume level is at 10% or 90%. And what we could do is we can optimize the ads and creatives that we send users, and we can guarantee to any buyer that the ad can be heard. And then we can, again, use these signals to predict various aspects of the users without using their personal data. So it's very, very hard to do. We've had a lot of people try to copy us, but no one's been successful yet. Okay,
very good. So from what I understand, you have offices in New York and Abu Dhabi. You've just announced another funding round of $5 million. You have a growing staff. You're growing to new locations as well, I believe. So this is a real positive example of the benefits of AI and the business potential. I'm going to come now to Khaled. You're on the Meta Oversight Board, which still exists despite the end of Meta's fact-checking. We'll come to that in a second. Could you just quickly go through your work on the Oversight Board and how on earth does a panel of 21 people, I believe, moderate 2 billion posts a day on Meta's platforms?
Thanks, Talek. Of course, Christian had the easy job of talking about the advantages and the good side and the money. And I'm going to have the other side of the coin, which is the problems, the regulation, and how we can make this safe for everybody as well as protecting the rights of everybody. The Oversight Board is indeed made up of 21 people from around the world, and it is empowered by Meta, which put $300 million in an irrevocable trust. So we are independent from Meta, though we are funded by it. They cannot take the money back. And our job is twofold. One, we have the power to issue binding decisions to force Meta to remove any content or piece of content that we think is offensive, violates Meta's policies, or violates human rights, the rights of people to express themselves in whichever way they like without impinging on the rights of others. Secondly, we give advisory opinion, so Meta doesn't have to implement it, but they have implemented 70% of our recommendations so far about certain policies, from nudity to counterterrorism to incitement to violence, and some of that stuff made huge difference. For example, all breast cancer campaigns were automatically removed because they were considered nudity. And by working with them to change the AI-created algorithm to accept or make an exception for breast cancer campaigns, for example, now millions of users and maybe hundreds of millions of posts about this issue is now featuring on Meta's platforms.
Okay. I think you have a very good example of recent misinformation because you've just come back from Syria,
Yes.
a country which is in a state of change and turmoil, and you witnessed some quite flagrant examples of misinfo there.
So I did like 60 interviews as part of my reporting trip under an oppressive regime. But one thing that kept coming either offline when I meet people or online because I was following hundreds of Syrians to augment my reporting is the scourge of misinformation and disinformation. Go and kill this guy. This guy was responsible for the massacre in such and such a place, and there were lots of massacres. 500,000 people were killed. So the fact that a lot of information is circulating with inciting to violence and not necessarily targeting the right person, not I'm saying that they should target the right person themselves, is very problematic. Now comes AI. With AI, the scale, so this, you can create 10 or 20 or 30 of them in a few minutes. You're an individual. The speed of creating something very believable, very credible, even with the voice and with the imagery, is scary in the middle of conflict. We have seen that in Gaza over 15 months, and we are seeing that now in Syria. But even away from conflicts, we see that with non-consensual intimate images. Women get killed from Pakistan to Mexico because of using very advanced AI systems that can create or recreate intimate images or use photos and then redo them into something that's really harmful.
The World Economic Forum last month warned that AI-powered misinformation was the world's biggest short-term threat. I'd just like to ask you to comment on the fact-checking, the end of fact-checking at Meta. I know it's something you've commented on in the past. And in the interest of full disclosure, I should say that my company, AFP, takes part in that fact-checking operation. But what to you are the dangers of the end of fact-checking?
I mean, the main dangers, and now I'm looking through my notes so I don't say any bad things about Meta. Okay, I think Meta's making a mistake. By very quickly, without studying the impact of removing fact-checking for political expediency, have been extremely important in conflicts. One of the main platforms that was still very helpful in Syria is Verify. It's a fact-checking platform. So people very quickly acquired trust and confidence in that platform, and whenever you have something that looks really weird, like, for example, Israel's troops coming into Damascus. I mean, they've come into Syria, but not into Damascus. You can go to that platform, or that platform will comment on that post, and then it's shot down. So fact-checkers have a really important role to play and a very fast role to play. By removing them and relying on community notes, as X does, which is far slower, and all of you know, guys, especially in tech, that the first 5-6 hours, if you come after 5 hours and say, that's misinformation, it's just too late. So the speed, the coverage, the reliability is much lower than independent, professional fact-checkers who are usually coming from journalistic organizations. So it's really a bad thing that happened, and my hope is that over time there will be audits, they will review this, they will check the impact, they will test what has come through the fact that there are no more fact-checking, and maybe reconsider.
Okay, thanks a lot. So we've seen two sides of the coin there. Firstly, the enormous business and lifestyle potential of AI, and those benefits are very real, but also the threats, as you've described so vividly. But Christian, it's not all plain sailing for AI-led businesses either. There are risks involved. There are hackers, nefarious actors. What are the risks for you in your business?
So, as a pioneer of in-game and in-app audio, we've always got to, be that shining beacon, leading example, because we have very powerful technology. So one of the technologies that we have is that we are able to, on device, clone voices with the permission of the influencers we work with, as well as the various voice actors we work with. And we can tailor the ad creative to any kind of person. If it's morning where they are, hey, good morning, I see that you're playing a racing game, why don't you check out this offer? It's a very, very powerful message, especially when you have the voice of an influencer as well. It's true influence, right? And again, you don't need to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, you just need, again, we've raised $20 million to date, so we've got a very, very small but highly intelligent R&D team that's created this mechanism. But what if you've got a bad actor that enters the space, that decides to, through the various means, clone any kind of voice to distribute misinformation? So it's more an issue of not so much the technology actually performing, but performing too well, and there's a bad actor that enters the space. So I definitely think there needs to be some higher form of regulation, as well as a technology that can very quickly identify which voices are immediately AI created and which ones are natural.
Okay, regulation is obviously a very difficult subject. Even at the AI Summit in Paris last month, the US and the UK wouldn't sign the final declaration on an inclusive and sustainable AI. Khaled, do you think there's any way in which regulation can be made to work of AI?
I think there are many ways. Christian just started by saying it doesn't have to be like hard regulations only by governments. There are various approaches to that. It can be voluntary. The Oversight Board that I work on is a voluntary form of regulation. Not leaving all the decisions and the powers in the hands of a board that only cares about the bottom line. That's the executive board. So companies can regulate themselves. I know the R word is bad for innovation. Innovators don't like to be hemmed in, they would like to try. But what I'm saying that to have a regulation that works for AI, one, it has to be global. Nobody can opt out, because otherwise it will be an uneven playing field. What you cannot do in the US, you will do in Dubai, or you'll do in China, and then it wouldn't work. It will actually hem in innovators in countries that commit to regulations. What we have so far, we have 7 global initiatives. Each one of them is not global. We have one by the G7, one by the G20, one by the OECD. That's not going to work. Then regulations can start with self-imposed voluntary associations to test assurance, to test leakages, to test privacy for any AI system. And there can be a system that companies can voluntarily apply for, that they can be vetted. But there is no alternative for a global AI regulation to handle the real issues of the need for better testing, better auditing, because sometimes moving too fast and breaking things is good for the business, but it's bad for people, because they can be also among the broken things because of new technologies that are not well regulated.
Is that correct, Christian? Is the R word a dirty word for innovation?
It is, and it isn't. It really depends on the perspective, because when it comes to distributing information on social media, that's very different to our industry, because we're not a social platform. We're a global ad network with just under 2 billion people in the network. However, it reminds me of some industry bodies, more commercially led, like the Interactive Advertising Bureau, where they set a standard, and a body of very innovative startups like ourselves, as well as larger companies, let's say Spotify, for instance, they all come together and they work with this governing body in order to create certain advertising standards. Now, I definitely think that rather than a purely government-based regulatory framework, and I know it sounds quite scary, but a commercially based regulatory framework where they interact with each other, where government can keep up with the innovations, as well as push the regulation in a more formalized format. I've seen that work in advertising. I think it could work with content distribution in social networks, but again, it's a lot of coordination for very, very fast-moving companies. And again, AI is like the automation of intelligence. It's moving much, much quicker than any technology I've ever seen, which makes what I've just said a much harder goal, but I think it could work.
Like, there could be another way to approach this that's more acceptable to the companies.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. This is slightly off topic, but I'm going to ask you anyway because it interests me. There's been a lot of apocalyptic warnings about the dangers of AI, untrammeled AI. Several leading experts, even hundreds, have talked about the risk of human extinction. Where do you guys sit on that very big question? Khaled.
Sure. I think there will be limits to AI. I listened to one of the speakers yesterday saying the only limit to AI is human care, like child nurseries. You will need somebody to have a human touch and stuff like that. I think it's much more than that. The risk of AI is that it will change what a human is. At the end of the day, it's not that I would like to have AI paint a painting for me. By painting a painting, even if I'm not going to become a Van Gogh, I'm also growing and becoming a different person. By writing myself and not letting ChatGPT write for me everything, I might not get the A+ if the professor is not good enough, but I also learn how to express myself. We change. We become who we are by doing certain things. I think this is the main risk of AI, that we end up doing less things. That's at the very individual level. But at the community level, even if I take what Christian said about this voluntary industry and commercialized associations, that will be great for the US, great for Europe, but India with 1.3 billion people, which is not maybe as important in the advertising market, will not feature high. Africa will not feature high. Most of MENA will not feature high. And that's why I'm not asking for slowness, I'm asking for a deliberate process which applies to all innovators. Then nobody has the advantage of doing no holds barred in one market and another is hemmed in by EU regulations or by US regulations.
Very good, thanks. And Christian, where do you stand on that?
I mean, in terms of like, apocalyptic scenario, I think that what everyone has to remember is that, for now anyway, any artificial intelligence, it's a tool, right? It's not like its own individual conscious being. It's a tool that you monitor, like a laptop, like using Microsoft Word. And as long as it remains that way, no matter how sophisticated the AI gets, I honestly think everything's going to be fine. Yes, it will speed up certain issues, especially in the social media space that we're already seeing now. But it's not like someone's going to make an AI, plug it into where the nuclear launch codes are, and then just let it do its own thing. It would take a very high level of stupidity to get to that point. So as long as the AI is always monitored and it's treated as a tool, honestly, I think it's not going to be smooth sailing, but I don't think we'll get towards an apocalyptic scenario that you'll see in like a movie or something.
Okay.
Well, stability is not in short supply for the human race. We have to say that. But anyway,
let's hope it turns out more positively than that. And we'll stick with Christian's explanation.
I hope he is more right and I'm more wrong. But I would be more worried without some light but global regulation, at least for the military uses of AI,
sure,
and for certain uses in medicine and stuff like that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all we've got time for. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.